Hello, everybody. My name is Ryan Koki of the Seahawk Recap Show, and welcome to another episode of News of the Week, the Easter episode. It is episode 23, and how are we all doing after a pretty chaotic news week, to be honest with you? The NFL commissioner and NFL owners and everything had their meeting in Orlando, Florida this week to discuss some new rule changes and things of that nature and finalize some things. We'll get to that in this week's episode. Without me rambling on too much more in the intro, if you like this video, please consider giving it a like. It lets me know if I'm doing a good job with these videos or not. And if you'd like to stick around for any future content, please consider subscribing. That would be greatly appreciated. Let's get into the changes coming next season. So, according to Jonathan Jones, here is what the NFL is planning to do ahead of next season. The NFL plans to play on Christmas Day again in 2024, even though the holiday falls on a Wednesday. And for me, that just means that they're doing it for revenue and a bunch of different things. They're just doing it for revenue. It was a big success last year, and you know what? They'll keep doing it as long as it makes them money. They'll keep doing it. So to me, this is kind of really just all about the money and revenue from this decision here. The NFL trade deadline has now moved and will take place on Tuesday after week 9 games. This just makes too much sense. Honestly, now that there's 18 weeks in the season, it makes too much sense to put the trade deadline at week 9 because that is the mid-season mark. So it just makes sense. I like this. It gives another week for teams to decide and finalize trades that they need, and that's just a nice change. So I'm fine with that. The NFL has now modified the onside kick. If you guys are interested in knowing my thoughts on the hip drop tackle ban and the new kickoff rules, I would highly recommend you go into my channel page or down in the description of this video to check out my news of the week episode I did last week. New season, new rules, episode 22. I give my opinions on the hip drop tackle potentially being banned, which now it is, and the kickoff rules. But they have modified the onside kick. You can only use an onside kick in the fourth quarter while trailing, and you have to declare it ahead of time. And that really sucks. That's one of the big things I didn't want to have happen. I wanted the kickoff changes, but I didn't want this to happen. So onside kicks are no longer going to be a surprise in the NFL this year, and they're only making it a 1 year thing for now. So they'll test out the new kicking rules for 2024, 2025, and then if it doesn't work, they'll switch. I would assume they would switch back their rules to the old rules from last season. Finally, the NFL has approved a rule change to allow replay review. Finally. So the NFL will use replay assist on intentional grounding in 2024. And you know what? That's honestly great. The NFL is now evolving. They're using the tools that they have available to them to make correct calls. Hopefully, this will mean, we'll have less instances where the ref calls something and it's completely not the way it should be. Maybe with this replay review assist thing, they'll be able to make some correct calls. Another thing I wanted to talk about on this week's episode was Dak Prescott's contract negotiations. So, according to Ian Rappaport, the Cowboys and Dak Prescott have a mutual understanding on his contract situation. Prescott has not been offered a contract extension at this point and will play on his final year of his expiring contract. This means that Dak Prescott will more than likely be testing free agency in 2025. I put Dak Prescott's stats down here. And now these are only his regular season stats, but to be honest, he's done amazing in the regular season. Dak Prescott has done amazing with the Cowboys throughout his career, you know, getting that team from the NFC East usually 10 or 11 wins to clinch the playoffs and make the playoffs. But the biggest thing that a lot of Cowboy fans have seen and a lot of haters like to point out about Dak Prescott is that he cannot win in big games. His playoffs have been absolutely dreadful. And this season, especially, has been kind of a turning point where you're seeing how they lost to the Packers in humiliating fashion. Like, so humiliating, it's not even funny. And now Jerry Jones is putting his foot down and saying, okay, we're going to allow you to have one more year. This is the end of your contract. If you don't make it to the playoffs and don't do anything in them again, and you're a first round exit again, then I guess we'll move on. That's at least what I'm getting from this whole, headline from Ian Rappaport is that it's more than likely he'll test free agency in 2025. And if Dak Prescott doesn't do anything this season and it's a wasted season where the Cowboys get bounced out in the first round again, maybe a new change of scenery would be good for the 30-year-old quarterback because obviously something wasn't working with the Cowboys if that's the case. And, I still think Dak Prescott's a really good player. And if he tests free agency in 2025, despite what Phil fans say about him being, mid and, he's garbage and nobody would want him. And, he'd be overpaid for whatever contract he would get in 2025. I don't think that's the case. I think he's showed great regular season numbers. We'll just see what happens in the playoffs if he decides to go to another team, or if he gets far in the playoffs this season, maybe he'll stick with the Cowboys. I can't wait to see what happens with him this season, though. But let's get into talking about some of the free agent signings this week, and let's talk about cornerback Tre'Davious White. He goes to the Rams on a $10 million deal for 1 year. Tre'Davious White, I think, is a solid pickup for the LA Rams because although White has had some issues with injury in the past couple of seasons with ACL and Achilles tears in back-to-back seasons, don't forget that he was one of the best corners in the league at one point for the Buffalo Bills. He's an all-pro guy, and he's shown throughout his career that he is a really good player. He just got injured back-to-back seasons and hasn't played very much in the past like 3 years. And this is why I really like this for the Rams because he's on a 1 year prove it deal. So I really hope that he does well on the Rams because it would be nice to see a full season of Tre'Davious White again. I really like this player, man. I really like Tre'Davious White. And it really sucks to see players get injured and players become quote unquote washed because they've had some rotten injury luck. I wish he didn't sign with the Rams because he's now in the NFC West, and if he does really well in that in the Seahawks division, I'm gonna be a little annoyed, but I wish him all the best, man. I think Tre'Davious White still has a lot in the tank and can show that he's still a pretty good corner despite all the injuries he's faced. The next guy on the list, and it's running back Cordero Patterson. He goes to the Steelers. He signs a 2 year contract for $6 million. With the new kickoff rules being implemented for 2024-2025, I really like this signing from the Pittsburgh Steelers. Patterson has been known to be one of the best kick returners in the NFL, and at age 33, this is a solid pickup. I don't think he'll get much playing time other than special teams because of his age, but he's not a bad third option in this running back room if he is needed in a pinch. Now the Steelers have Najee Harris, Jaylen Warren, and Cordell Patterson. That is a scary bunch of dudes. And I really wish Cordell Patterson all the best with the Steelers because I loved him on the Falcons. I love him as a kick and punt returner. He is, again, one of the most electrifying guys when it comes to kick and punts and special teams. So I can't wait to see what he does with the Steelers. Hopefully he can get a couple of kick return touchdowns. That would be pretty sick to see. But let's get to the final guy on this list, and it's outside linebacker DeJavion Clowney. to the Panthers on a $20 million deal for 2 years. I really like this signing from the Panthers because they're getting a capable pass rusher who has been very consistent for the Ravens the last couple of years. He can also be a mentor for the young linebackers or pass rushers that the Panthers bring in for the next 2 years. And for me, this seems like a signing where Jadeveon Clowney didn't get signed in the first week. So that means that top teams weren't really interested. And now he goes to a team that's rebuilding. He knows that they're in a full rebuild and he's going to be playing starter minutes instead of going to a team like the Chiefs or the Dolphins or a top contender and playing maybe backup minutes. He's now going to be a guy that's going to come in, play his heart out, show why he was a good pickup for the Panthers. And then when the Panthers draft, pass rushers or outside linebackers to eventually replace him, he can then share his wealth of knowledge and try to make those draft picks and things of that nature better and young prospects. So this is a really good pickup for the Panthers. I really like this. And I wish Jadeveon Clowney all the best with the Panthers this season and for the seasons to come. And let's talk about, for the final topic on this episode, there are still some stars on the free agency market, and I picked out three here that I really wanted to talk about. First off, let's start with safety Justin Simmons, age 30. I'm quite surprised that no NFL team has picked up Justin Simmons from free agency just yet. Throughout his career with the Denver Broncos, Justin Simmons has been a freak of nature for the back end of that defense. In his 8-year playing career, Justin Simmons has 118 games played, 563 tackles, 4.5 sacks, and 30 interceptions. With this kind of resume, I really don't understand why he is still in free agency. As I was writing this, as I was going through my thought process, I've realized that in the first week is where the majority of big names get signed. And considering that this free agency class was filled to the brim with young safety talent, I'm still surprised because Justin Simmons is still an all-pro safety. He's 30, yes, but he's still, got a lot of energy left in the tank. He's still playing at a high level. So I'm quite surprised that he's not getting picked up. But I guess, it might be a money thing on his contract. He might be wanting a little bit more than teams are willing to pay. And now that, free agency has kind of died down after the first week, maybe he has to lower his expectations a little bit and just try to get on a team for next season. Let's talk about cornerback Xavier Howard next. He is also 30, and even though I think Howard has been on the decline for a couple of years, I still think he is a good corner and has shown his worth for the Miami Dolphins. He's still a corner that I think can hold his own against some of the top competition in the NFL. In his 8-year playing career, Xavier Howard has played 100 games, had 309 tackles, 95 passes defended, and 29 interceptions. And this is a big thing for me because if the Rams gave Tre'Davious White a deal, I wonder what NFL team would give Xavier Howard a 1-year prove it deal, just like the Rams did with Tre'Davious White. And Xavier Howard, again, when I say he's been on the decline, he has been on the decline. He's been injury prone a little bit more. He's only played 100 games in his career, but when he's on the field and if he can stay healthy, he is still a very good lockdown corner. And I think a lot of teams will want that on their team come the playoffs, come regular season. There are certain teams that need corners, like Pittsburgh, for example. Did Pittsburgh want to take a shot on a old veteran that could potentially be a mentor for some guys and can still play at a pretty high level? He's probably not a starter option, but he's definitely a good solid number 2 or third option depending on what he wants in terms of money and term. And let's talk about the final guy on this list. It is wide receiver Tyler Boyd, age 29. And just like Justin Simmons, I was quite shocked to see that Tyler Boyd was still on the market for free agency. NFL fans said that he wants too much money. That's why he's not being signed. And although that is true, my rebuttal is that is every free agent in the history of the NFL. When you are going into free agency, of course, you are going to want as much money and as much term as possible. So there will be overpays and things like that. And people are like, "Oh, but that's why he hasn't been signed because he wants to be overpaid for his skill set." But I think his stats, he's earned himself a pay raise from his stats alone. He's been a reliable player for the Bengals for the past 8 seasons. For any team that needs a slot receiver, I don't think you could ask for a better player to fit that role in this free agency wide receiver class. He's played 120 games in his career, having 513 receptions, 6,000 yards, and 31 touchdowns. And why I say you probably couldn't find a better slot receiver is because for the Bengals, this guy has been behind Jamar Chase, has been behind T. Higgins, and even even after all of that, he's still putting up big numbers. In the touchdown department, he's been slowly dropping off, but if he's behind big heavy hitters like T. Higgins and like Jamar Chase for the past couple of years, of course his touchdown numbers will kind of take a dip, but he's still got a lot of yards. He's still a big body, and he's a really reliable pass catcher for any team that goes to pick him up. So I'm quite surprised that he hasn't been picked up by anybody. But again, like NFL fans have said, it might be just a money thing. But I can think of a couple of places he could potentially go. The Pittsburgh Steelers might need some wide receivers if need be. I know the Panthers need wide receivers. Do they want to take a shot at Tyler Boyd and give Bryce Young another weapon to use? We'll see what happens with him. Anyways, that is it for News of the Week, episode 23. Happy Easter to you all. This was the Easter episode, and I hope to see you next week. I hope you enjoy the rest of your week and take care.